Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vak Pranashchakshushrotramatho Balamindriyani cha Sarvani Sarvam Brahmopanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuryam Ma Brahma Nirakarot Anirakaranamastu Anirakaranam Me Astu Tadatmani nirateya upanishatsu dharmaah te mai santu te mai santu. We'll read from mantra 1. So you can turn to mantra 1. Kene shitam patati preshitam manaha kena pranah pratamah praiti yuktaha Kene shitam vachamimam vadanti chakshushrotram ka udevo yunakti shrotrasya shrotram manaso manuyata vacho havacham sa upranasya pranaha chakshushaschakshurati muchadhiraha pretyasmalokadamrita bhavanti न तत्र चक्षुर्गच्छति न वाग्गच्छति नो मनः न विद्मः न विजानीमः यथैतदनुशिष्यात् अन्यदेव तद्विदितात् अथो अविदितात् अधि इति शुश्रुम पूर्वेषां येन तद्व्याचचक्षिरे. Okay, very good. So last time we did mantra number 3. So let us just revise from there and then we move on. Now, before I move on, I know there were some questions last week that I could not understand. I could not explain properly because we didn't have enough time. So I will just give the answers to those questions and then we will start. One question was, what is the difference between AI, artificial intelligent robot, and a jiva, or a being, a human being? So we know that from our texts, the definition of a being or a jiva is the reflection of consciousness. So strictly speaking, when we say jiva, Jiva means reflection of consciousness in the mind-intellect equipment. When that is there, that's called Jiva. And of course, if there's a mind-intellect equipment, then there's also a body. So now, when we speak about a robot, it does not have that reflection of consciousness because it does not have the mind-intellect equipment to reflect it. Does it have consciousness? It does have consciousness because everything in the world has consciousness. Everything in the world is pervaded by consciousness, but it is not conscious. It is not a conscious or sentient entity. However, a jiva is also pervaded by consciousness, but is a conscious entity because it has the mind and intellect equipment and thus the reflection of consciousness. Now, some might say that, but the computer, the robot will have a mind, because mind means that faculty that helps us think. It's that faculty that helps us think. And if you take the mind, the intellect, the memory, ego all in one, then it's the faculty that helps us to think, to remember, to reason, etc. So the computer also has that. The computer has that, or the robot will have that, but it's very much programmed. It's not its own ability to think or to reason or to feel. It's a programmed ability. Whereas if you take a jiva, it's really our own ability to think and to reason and to feel. And so because this jiva is, enlivened by the reflection of consciousness, it does not need any outside power to make it work. However, the robot or AI or computer, anything, will need an outside power to make it work. Also, an AI robot, the mind, they consider to be a gross thing, a gross organ. While in Vedanta, that for the jiva, it's a subtle thing. It cannot be perceived by the senses. So this is the difference between these two. So the jiva is that where the reflection of consciousness exists in the mind, intellect, equipment. Now, the second point I wanted to clarify is this point again about what is inert. So in Vedanta, everything is inert except the subject. So Atman, the self, is the only conscious entity. Everything else is inert. And why is that? Because everything else depends on consciousness for it to be illumined. We cannot, nothing can be known, can be enlivened without consciousness. So everything other than consciousness is really inert. Body is inert, objects are inert, things around are inert. Even this mind has what we call borrowed sentiency. It appears sentient because it has borrowed sentiency, but it's really inert. So everything in Vedanta is inert except consciousness, except the subject. Then the third point was about vasanas and where they are. So this will be clarified now in Anyadeva Tadviditat in this mantra. Okay, so now let's look at this mantra number 3, which we did last time. So here the teacher is really trying to go a little bit deeper with the student and saying, yes, it's the ear of the ear, the eye of the eye, the breath of the breath, the speech of the speech, that is the self. However, the eye cannot go there. Na tatra chakshur gacchati. So the eye cannot go there. Na vag gacchati. And speech cannot go there. No manaha. And the mind cannot go there. Na vidmaha. And we also don't know it in a particular way as such and such. Navijani maha yatheta danushishyat. And we also don't know how to teach it. But why? Anyadeva tadviditat atho aviditat adhi. Anyadeva tadviditat. Because it is different from the known. Atho aviditat adhi. And it is beyond the unknown. They're also different from the unknown. So let's just review this line and then we'll move further. Why is it different from the known? Because it's not an object. So remember, if anything is known, it implies that there's a knower. Anything is known, it implies a knower. And the knower is different from the known. So therefore, anything that is known is not Brahman. But well, can you say it's unknown? No, because the self is ever known, right? Well, our self is ever known. In every single experience, there is the self. So it's not unknown. It's not unknown because it's the subject. So it's not known because it's not an object. And it's not unknown because it's the very subject. So it's different from the known, different from the unknown. Now, another way to look at it, different from known, knowledge, different from whatever knowledge of anything we have. But sometimes people feel like they know so much scholarly stuff, right? But what is Brahman? Anya deva tad viditat. Different from what is known. But there are also things that we're ignorant about. We don't know it. So that unknown, Brahman is also different from that, because it's different from knowledge and ignorance. Is that which illumines knowledge and ignorance. That which is known to us is an object. That which is unknown to us is also an object. Knowledge is an object. Ignorance is an object. And at some point in time, that known can be unknown. Maybe I knew of something. Maybe when I was in school, I studied chemistry. It was totally known to me. Now, completely unknown, forgotten, right? So that known can be unknown. And at the same time, the unknown can become known. Something that we've never heard of, a word that we've never heard of. It's unknown to us. All of a sudden, it's known, right? Now we're doing this project on saints, and so many people were unknown to me, and now they're becoming known. So Brahman is different from that which is known and unknown. Now, another way to look at it. So now, what is known, we saw, yad drishyam tad jadam. What is known is inert. And what is inert is therefore destructible. Why is it destructible? Tannashwaram. Because when the knower is not there, that known goes away. So it's destructible. And therefore, whatever is known is anitya, it's impermanent, and mithya, false. So therefore, why revel in the known? Because it goes away. It goes away, right? So the known is something that is what we call heya. It goes away, it drops. And the unknown is something that we have to take. It's as if we have to learn about it. If we have to think about it, we have to gather information about it. We have to take it in, right? So known is something that we have to drop, or we drop because it's false anyway. Unknown is something that we try to take in, to learn about. But the self is something that cannot be dropped and cannot be taken in. Anything that I can drop from this is the not self. Anything that I can take on is the not self. The self cannot be dropped. You drop everything, the body, the mind, the intellect, the thoughts, you drop everything. That which cannot be dropped is the self. We take upon everything, identities, names, roles, all of that. But that which cannot be taken up, that is the self. Because that is you. So the self is not something that can be dropped, not something that can be taken up. Different from the known, different from the unknown. One more, known, unknown. There was a question about the vasanas. What is known to us is the gross and subtle bodies, is known in the sense that the gross body is known, this body, face, all of that is known. Thoughts are also known to us, but the vasanas are unknown, or what we call the karana sharira. The gross and subtle bodies are known, the causal body is unknown. Vasanas are unknown. In their unmanifest form, they are unknown. When they express, they become known. But in their unmanifest form, they are unknown. And so what is Brahman? Brahman is different than the gross, subtle body, and also different from the causal body. So even what we call vasanas, or subconscious or unconscious, Brahman is different from that. So even that, this is exactly that term, neti neti. Neti neti, not this, not this, not the gross, subtle body, not the causal body. So anytime we feel that we want to know, what is this Brahman? What is this Brahman? So, anyadeva tadviditat, different from the known. Atho aviditat adhi, different from the unknown. Just keep this beautiful indication and everything becomes clear when you really, really, really think about it. So now that's what he said in verse number 3. And then he said, iti shushruma purvesham. And this is what we have heard, shushruma, what we have heard, purvesham, from our teachers, from our ancestors. Ye vyachachakshire, that taught us. Naha, yaha, ye naha, tad vyachachakshire, those who have taught us. So this is not something that can be learned by pratyaksha, by direct perception, by our senses, nor is it something that we can think about and reason, but it is something indicated to us by the teachers. And how is it indicated? It's indicated in that it cannot be comprehended by the senses or the mind. So that's the beauty of it. And the beauty of this verse or this mantra also is sometimes, people ask, when did the Guru Parampara start? When did this lineage of teacher and student start? Well, the Upanishads were given thousands of years ago. And here itself it says, iti shushruma purvesham. So that tradition of teacher and thought and teacher and student has existed time immemorial. So it's always been there, and this is how people have learned. So now the student is like, wow, okay, different from the known, different from the unknown. Now the student has a question that says, okay, I understand what you're saying. Maybe God can be Brahman, but I can't be Brahman. I understand Brahman is different from the known and the different from the unknown, but maybe that's not me. I take myself to be this jiva. I take myself to be this jiva who has this body and mind, who's going through samsara. And because I'm going through samsara, I pray to God to get me out of this samsara, to make me free from this samsara. So I don't think I'm that. Maybe God, the one who I worship, is that, different from the known and unknown. But I'm something else. So the teacher now says, okay, let me take this doubt away from your mind. And so the teacher starts a whole series of just clarifying this thought even further. So I will chant, and then Meena Mami, if you can repeat. Okay, let me just unmute you. Okay, I'll make you co-host as well. Okay. Yadvachanabhyuditam yena vagabhyudyate tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate yadvachanabhyuditam yena vagabhyudyate tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate. So this is a very beautiful verse. This is a very beautiful Upanishad. each mantra is very deep. So now let us look at this. Yat, that, anabhyuditam. Anabhyuditam means that which cannot be revealed, vacha, by speech. That which cannot be revealed by speech, but yena vagabhyudyate, yena, by which vag, speech, is revealed, abhyudyate. So what speech cannot reveal, but that which reveals speech, tadeva brahma, that alone is Brahman. Tvam vidhi, you know that alone to be Brahman. Na idam, not this, yat idam upasate, not this that one worships or that people worship. So, what speech cannot reveal, but what reveals speech, know that alone as Brahman and not that what people worship here. Okay. So first, let's look at this. So what does speech reveal? Speech reveals words, right? So when we say yad vachana bhuditam, that which is revealed by speech, that which speech cannot reveal. So speech reveals words. Speech reveals sound. Speech is also the organ, the actual physical organ that produces sound, which produces words. So what he's saying is this: speech cannot reveal it, it cannot be spoken about, it cannot be said, it cannot be explained, it cannot be revealed by that speech, but that which reveals that speech, that is called Brahman. So now all of these verses that follow will be exactly like this. That which the mind cannot reveal, but that by which the mind is revealed. That which the eyes cannot see, but that by which the eyes are able to see, know that alone to be Brahman. So now in this verse, what we see here is moment-to-moment meditation. This moment-to-moment meditation is just taking us from the object all the way to the subject. And I'll give you an example that Pujya Gurudev gives often. There was a villager. There was a villager. There was a villager, and he went to the city for the first time. And think about years ago, 20, 30, 50 years ago. And in the village, they didn't have electricity. So, he used to light those oil lamps and everything. And so he came to the city, and he came to stay with one of his relatives, and his relatives turned on the switch, and he was so surprised that lights came on. And he said, "What is this? What is this?" And so the person said, "It's electricity. This is electricity." But the villager said, "What is electricity?" And so the city person said, "This is electricity." He said, "What is it? Is it this bulb? Is this bulb electricity?" He said, "No, this bulb is not electricity." But that thing inside the bulb, that filament inside the bulb, is that electricity? No, that's not electricity. But that light in the bulb, is that electricity? No, that's not electricity. Then what is electricity? It is that which makes the bulb light up. That's called electricity. That's electricity. So that's Brahman. So whenever we see speech, it's not the speech, it's not the words, it's not the things coming out, but from that speech, what is it that makes the speech possible? That's called Brahman. So it's not the eyes that see things, but what is it that makes the eyes see? That's called Brahman. It's not what the ears hear, but what is it that makes the ear hear? That's called Brahman. So that innermost self is being indicated here as Brahman. Yad vachana bhuditam yena vaga bhudyate. So now if I want to meditate in the seat of meditation, what do I do? Withdraw, take my attention from all the words, to all the alphabets, to all of the syllables, to all of the sound, to the organ of speech, to that very silence, and that which illumines that's Brahman. So every single object can take us to the subject. You look at, let's say if you have an electric fan, why is the electric fan moving? What is it that makes the electric fan move? That's called Brahman, right? Electricity, but electricity in the sense that's like Brahman. What is that which makes the computer power up? That's electricity. That electricity is like Brahman. So from every object, just take yourself to the subject. And he says, tad. Tad here means that, the subject. Tad eva, that alone, the subject alone means nothing else. We're talking about that pure, unconditioned Brahman. That alone is Brahma. Tvam vidhi, you know that alone to be Brahman. There's also another way to read this. Tadeva Brahmatvam, that alone which is Brahman is you. That is you, vidhi. May you know this. And na idam yad idam upasate. And Brahman is not that which we worship here. Now, what happens in this verse? So anything that we worship, we can see, we can hear, we can smell, we can taste, is not Brahman. So this, in our culture, there's this practice called upasana. Upasate means to worship, upasana, wherein we take an image or a form and we worship that. And this verse is telling us that that's not Brahman. Because the one who illumines that even mind, that is Brahman. So what do we do with this practice? So the practice of upasana, or worshipping a form, chanting a mantra, worshipping a form, that's a very beautiful practice in Sanatana Dharma. And it is done for two reasons. So it is done for two reasons. One reason is to prepare us for knowledge. So before knowledge, this practice is taken up because we need what is called single-pointed focus and concentration. The mind doesn't have that. So before knowledge, this practice called upasana, concentrating on an image, is taken up. And the idea is that the worshipper is trained now to expand their definition of God. So in the beginning, the worshipper sees God as just this one image or one form, which we call ekarupa. Then gradually, that worshipper will see God in many forms. So the God in Hinduism is the same as the God in Christianity, is the same as the God in other religions. It's the same essence. The same essence. Then after that, the seeker from Eka Rupa to Aneka Rupa will see that God then in Vishwarupa. Will start seeing that God in everything. In everything. Everything is my Shiva. Everything is my Krishna. Everything is my Devi. Then eventually that seeker will be pushed to the beyond to understand that God is really formless. What we call arupa. And then the seeker will be even pushed beyond that to say that God is swarupa, my own self. So this practice of upasana, or worshipping an image, is to slowly take us to that level and push us beyond that. Because in the beginning, it's very hard without the form. It's very hard to relate to this truth if we're not given a form. The same way, if I were to do a class without video, it's a little harder to listen. Without audio, you might leave, right? Like that, it becomes hard. But if there's a lot of visual and audio, becomes a little bit easier until the mind is trained to get subtle enough. So this is the point of upasana. Now, after knowledge, there's also upasana. So after knowledge, even those who have knowledge sometimes still worship God with an image because they feel that that's the same God everywhere. That's the same God in me. That's the same God everywhere. And there's no doubt about it. That's also okay. There's absolutely no problem. And that's called para bhakti. Because in Advaita, there's only that one self. So that one self expresses in that form, that one self expresses everywhere. And why not? And there's this beautiful verse in Sanskrit that says, this para bhakti is like the wind blowing. It's blowing, blowing, and it's all pervading. This vayu, this wind is all pervading. But when it touches you, it touches your skin, then you feel it most. But that when the wind touches your skin, it doesn't compromise its all pervadingness. It's still all pervading. It's just that it touched your skin, but it's still all pervading. The same way that Brahman is all pervading. At some point in time, if it becomes with form and touches us, it does not compromise its all pervadingness. It's still there. So the beauty of knowledge is that knowledge brings us from the seen to the seer. Knowledge will make us go. That form of God, go within, go within, go within. That's really yourself. The essence of God and the essence of you are one. Knowledge will bring us from the seen to the seer. But the beauty of devotion, it will make that seer, that drashta, become seen. It will make that seer, that ultimate seer, become seen just for us because of devotion. And the beauty of knowledge plus devotion is that one goes beyond the seer and one goes beyond the seen. Who sees what? What else is there to see? So nedam yadidam upasate must be clearly understood. That it doesn't tell us to give up all of our practices, but it clearly defines, or rather indicates, what Brahman is. Brahman, in indicating Brahman, there is absolutely no compromise. Brahman is that existence, consciousness, bliss, which is the ultimate seer, that pure awareness. That there is no compromise. Now, so all of these verses are to know that. But upon knowing that, what we do, that's up to us. There are some people who say that no, one shouldn't practice upasana after knowledge, or one shouldn't worship a god with image after knowledge. Well, do you eat? If you eat and you sleep and you're going here and there, then you can still pray. Remember, everything is still in the appearance of duality. Even Vedanta teaching takes place in duality. The only non-dual thing, if we say a thing, the only non-dual subject is the self. Everything else is an appearance of duality. Even teaching takes place in duality, praying takes place in duality, worshipping takes place in duality, all of it takes place in duality. So the most important thing is, if we understand the non-dual self and that everything else is an expression of it, then life becomes very, very beautiful. It becomes a play. So what does this verse say? Yad vacha nabhyuditam. That which speech cannot reveal, that which cannot be revealed by speech. And it truly cannot. One has to, as much as, yes, the words are there, the mahavakyas are there, they are there. They are definitely there. But one has to internalize it. Yena vag abhyudyate, but that by which speech is revealed. Tad eva brahma tvam vidhi. Know that alone to be Brahman, or know that Brahman to be you. Nedam yadidam upasate, and not this image that we worship here. Not anything that we see, hear, smell, taste, that is not Brahman. If before knowledge, after knowledge, then there is only Brahman. Okay? Now we will go to the next verse. So he's going to follow the same line of thought. And we will go to verse number 5. Yan manasa na manute.
Yan manasa na manute.
Yena hurmano matam.
Yena hurmano matam.
Tadeva brahma tvam vidhi.
Tadeva brahma tvam vidhi.
Nedam yadidam upasate.
Nedam yadidam upasate.
Yan manasa na manute. Yena hurmano matam. Tadeva brahma tvam vidhi. Nedam yadidam upasate. So, yat manasa na manute. That which one cannot think of, feel by the mind. Yat manasa, by the mind. Na manute, one can never think of or feel by the mind. Yena ahu mano matam, but that because of which they say ahu manaha matam. The mind is called by its name, or the mind can think. Tad eva brahma, that alone is Brahman. Tvam vidhi, thou know that. Na idam, not this. Yat idam, that this. Upasate, that people worship. What one cannot feel with the mind, but because of which they say the mind feels, know that alone as Brahman, and not this which people do worship here. So again, the mind. What can the mind do? The mind, so here when we take the mind, the intellect, the ego, the memory. What can it do? It can think, it can feel, it can do all of these things. What is the basis of the mind's thoughts? So basis of the mind's thoughts is what we gather by the sense object. The basis of the mind's thoughts are our vasanas, or deep impressions. Basis of the mind's thoughts are sometimes memories or imaginations. Now, all of this is not there in Brahman. We just said that sense objects, sense organs even cannot touch Brahman. Brahman is different than the known and unknown, beyond the vasanas, beyond the memories, beyond the imagination. So therefore, the mind cannot touch Brahman or enter the realm of Brahman. The mind cannot think of it. Guruji says this beautiful thing: think of the unthinkable without being a thinker. The mind cannot touch Brahman. And as I mentioned also last time, the minute we have mind, we have time, space, object. Already we lost Brahman, because Brahman is beyond time, beyond space, beyond object. And when we really look at it, what is a thought? So the mind is a flow of thoughts. What is a thought? Consciousness plus object is a thought. When consciousness pervades an object, that's a thought. But Brahman is not consciousness plus the object, because it is just pure consciousness. It is just that subject alone. Objectless awareness, objectless consciousness, that's Brahman. So this is not something that the mind can reason, intellectualize, think of, imagine. This is not any of that. If the mind thinks of it, it's not Brahman. What has to happen is the mind has to withdraw. That's why the process of meditation is withdrawal. It's withdrawing all of our thoughts, Neti, neti, not this, not this, not this. And what remains, that is Brahman. That is Brahman. So yan manasa namante. Mind cannot think about it. Yedahur manomata. But that by which the mind is able to think. Tadeva Brahma. That alone is Brahman. Tvam vidhi nedam vyadidam upasate. Okay, the other points we've covered also before. So now we will move on to the other ones. We'll see the same thought flow. Mantra number 6. Yat chakshusha na pashyati.
Yat chakshusha na pashyati.
Yena chakshugam pashyati.
Yena chakshugumshi pashyati.
Tadeva brahma tvam vidhi.
Tadeva brahma tvam vidhi.
Nedam yadidam upasate.
Nedam yadidam upasate.
Yat chakshusha na pashyati. Yena chakshugam pashyati. Tadeva brahma tvam vidhi. Nedam yadidam upasate. So here, yat, that which chakshusha, through the eye, na pashyati, it never sees, it cannot be seen by the eye. But yena chakshugamshi pashyati, yena, by which chakshugamshi, the eyes, pashyati, see. Tadeva Brahma, that alone is Brahma. Tvam vidhi, know that. Nedam yadidam pasate. So it cannot be seen by the eye. And that by which the eyes are able to see, that is Brahman. So again, any visions that we have, anything that we see, we think is Brahman, we saw, we think is Brahman, that's not Brahman. But that by which we're able to see, that is Brahman. Of course, when we, there are such expressions like you see God with your eyes open, you see God everywhere, you see the truth everywhere. What that is the expression of it, the expression of it. But that true unconditioned Brahman, that is something that which illumines those eyes, the mind, the hearing, etc. Oh, one point now I will share about now how this can be applicable, right? So now what is it that we do in the seat of meditation? In the seat of meditation, everything, let us say there is something that's on our mind, something on our mind, it's there on our mind, whether it's something we saw, sometimes there's some things that we see, we cannot unsee. We saw something and it really, really disturbed us and we cannot unsee. So what do? Yat chakshusha na pashyati, yena chakshurgamshi pashyati. From that which we saw, take it to the eyes. From the eyes, take it to the mind. From the mind, take it to consciousness and rest there. That's all. This only works, when our likes and dislikes are not strong. When we have a strong like for something or strong dislike for something, it's difficult to take this in. But when we have less strong likes and less strong dislikes, when our likes and dislikes are really thin, really less, then we can take this little deeper. So anything, something that we thought of, something that came into our minds that maybe is distracting us or that's really exciting us, and we can't sit still. Again, take it from the mind, go all the way to consciousness, rest there. So that is a practice of meditation. Sometimes people ask, what do you do? What do you do? This is what you do. Always just go from the object to the subject. And this is what just practices the whole entire week. Any object that we have, just keep going to the subject and remain as is. This is what these mantras are teaching us. Now we'll read the others briefly, but after that, then I will pause for questions, and then next week maybe I'll do a little bit more on these mantras. Okay, so we'll just read so that the thought flow is complete, and then we'll pause for questions. So verse number 7. Yat shrotrena na shrunoti.
Yat shrotrena na shrunoti.
Yena shrotramidam shrutam.
Yena shrotramidam shrutam.
Tadeva brahma tvam vidhi.
तदेव ब्रह्म त्वं विद्धि
नेदं यदिदमुपासते
नेदं यदिदमुपासते
यच्छ्रोत्रेण न शृणोति येन श्रोत्रमिदं श्रुतं तदेव ब्रह्म त्वं विद्धि नेदं यदिदमुपासते. Same thing here. Yat shrotrena, that which through the ear, na shrunoti, that which cannot be heard by the ear, but yena shrotram idam shrutram, that because of which the ear can hear. Tadeva Brahma Tvam Vidhi, that alone is Brahman. Edam Yadidam Upasate. Yat Pranena Na Praniti,
यत् प्राणेन न प्राणिति
Yena Pranah Praniyate,
येन प्राणः प्रणीयते
Tadeva Brahma Tvam Vidhi,
तदेव ब्रह्म त्वं विद्धि
Nedam Yadidam Upasate.
नेदं यदिदमुपासते
Yat pranena na praniti, yena prana praniyate, tadeva brahma tvam vidhi, nedam yadidam upasate. So the same idea, yat pranena na praniti, that which by the vital area, it cannot be breathed. That which one breathes not with his breath. But yena prana praniyate, but by which breath is breathed. Know that to be Brahman, not this which people worship here. So more of this idea we will take up next week. I'll pause now for any questions that anybody has, and then after that we can just sit quietly. These are very, very beautiful verses to contemplate.